Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indie Comics Explained. And again, I'm back, and I have another fantastic guest. But before we get to him, please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, hit that notification bell. And currently, I have an Indiegogo running with the Oswald Chronicles. So if you want, it's on Indemand. Go check it out for Fallen Gods. And here's my guest. So this is Thom Burgess. How you doing, Thom?
Good, thanks, JD. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So, yeah. So, like I said, I'm trying to get human. A little early. It's funny. It's 2 p.m. my time, but I'm a night owl. I normally go to bed 4 in the morning.
Oh, right.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Head.
Yeah. So I'm still trying to get myself together. I don't wake up till like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a nice start for you then.
Exactly. So it's just funny. All right. So Thom, let's get into it, man. So you're doing an anthology on Kickstarter, Early Haunts, right? Which looks incredible. But before we talk about that, we'll talk about some other stuff. We'll get to know you a little bit better. So what was the genesis of you getting into comics? Like what brought you in? Like what was that first book that you said, yeah, this is what I want to do?
It's hard to pinpoint it down to one book. There was, I guess, like titles like From Hell by Alan Moore, Extraordinary Gentleman, By Chance or by Providence by Becky Cloonan, which is a fantastic example of like how to execute a really well done anthology. Those kind of titles really drew me in, and I suppose away from that expectation that comics would have to be just all about supers. And I've always just been more interested in comics which have more of a unique tale to them, rather than necessarily following like like the Marvel timeline or the DC timeline. But having said that, huge fan of like the big Batman titles like Long Halloween, obviously Batman Year One. So I guess it would have been probably a mix of different authors. But yeah, it just it opened up my mind to. It gave a means to telling a story in a really unique and refreshing way, which I thought was really cool.
No, that's cool. Now, why an anthology? Like, why did you choose to do an anthology as opposed to just doing like just a straight narrative fiction? Why an anthology?
I suppose I've always had that special I always particularly like anthologies. They kind of talk to me. I really feel they've got an attraction which you don't get with other books, where you can kind of dive in and out. And especially in terms of my real love, like ghost stories, it seemed just a natural progression to be able to take those stories and collate them together. And the fact, in Early Haunts, you've got ancient Japanese ghost story there. There's an ancient Rome ghost story, like the first ever haunted house story. You've got a story there based in ancient Germany, which is kind of like the precursor of Sleepy Hollow. And I just thought, wow, what a great opportunity to take these individual stories, which are really, really separate in how they've been like originated, and just bring them together under one title. And that's really how it came about. I started with one story, the House in Athens. And I was really intrigued just how Charles Dickens had brought up the whole concept of Jacob Marley, and like a particularly iconic ghost. Now we think of like that ghost, the kind of the Disney Haunted Mansion ghost, in chains, and it just really struck a chord with me. Just how lots of other these iconic characters, you could go back into their timelines and find out how like Washington Irving came up with the Headless Horseman, for instance. After I did some research on the first one, I just caught the bug, and I was really keen to go back further.
Gotcha. No, I mean, yeah, because I'm just scrolling through I was just scrolling through your campaign real quick. It looks really nice. Now, the one thing I didn't pick up is you got 4 different stories. You have 4 unique looking styles. Is there 4 different artists you're working with?
Sure. So there's David Ramiro, who's a good friend of mine. He did the cover work as well. He's a fantastic horror artist. He's just well worth following on Twitter. And then there's Brianne Newman. I've known Brie for a while. She's done work for Rick and Morty, background work. Phenomenal artist as well. Brian Valenza coloured her work on that's the Taylor Dish Mansion, which is the story which inspired Ring. So I long admired Brian's work. So it was great to bring those two together. Then there's Brian Coldrick from the UK. He did a title on IDW, which came out a few years ago, called Behind You, which is based on, he does these beautiful, the kind of like short animated GIFs, which just have almost like a 2-line sentence story to them, where it's always based on the premise of some lurking danger behind them. Fantastic. Again, an amazing artist. He's done an incredible job with Wild Huntsman. And Mike O'Brien, who did The House in Athens, the first story, he's got an incredible, unique take on it. And it kind of complements the pastel tones of haunted ancient Greek ghost story as well. So it's not all kind of doom and gloom. It's it really plays around with the tones of it.
Gotcha. Now, when you were putting the stories together, obviously you wrote the stories one at a time, but when you were doling them out to the artists, did you say you were like, okay, let me just deal with one artist at a time, or did you decide to drive yourself insane and deal with multiple artists at one time? How did you go about that?
That's a good question. I initially, I guess the project started with one artist, and then seeing the potential for it. Like initially, perhaps it's just going to be a passion project. I just wanted to adapt one just for my own satisfaction, and then maybe sort out later if it was going to be a case of releasing it individually, or there wasn't perhaps like a great scheme. But after seeing the first, the final result after the first story, and I saw the potential for it, I was really keen to kind of carry it on. So for it's been kind of a split where the first 2 stories were individual, and then after that, given the situation this year with obviously lockdowns everywhere and pandemics, and it just, there was a window that opened up, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool just to wrap that up as a Kickstarter for running through Halloween? So the last 2 will kind of run simultaneously. So the Teledish Mansion and the Wild Huntsman have both been illustrated within the last 6 months. And I'm pleased to say it's been a dream. Bree, there's a lot of Bree and Brian's involved, but Bree and Brian have been just amazing to work with. So it's been a real pleasure.
Now, you said you knew one of the artists for a while. Now, how did you come across these other artists? Like, what was your process for finding these people to help you out?
I guess a lot of the time it's just been a case of people that I've run into in terms of social media. I've seen their work. The horror art community, I would say, is relatively small, so work gets bounced around quite a lot. And I did an anthology last year called Nyctophobias, and there were 20 ghost stories each, roughly based around like Tales of the Dark. And I was really fortunate that 20 illustrators were really kind enough to donate their time in terms of doing a piece for each story. And then so that was kind of triggered by the fact that it was the Australian wildfires when it came out, and I really wanted to do something which would hopefully help support the causes back, especially to the animals that were affected by it, and obviously people were displaced, jobs were lost. So all the proceeds from that book have gone straight to the Australia Zoo, which is the Irwin Zoo. And I'm really pleased to say it's done really well. But yeah, Bree, for instance, was one of the artists who kindly donated one of the pieces for one of the stories. And David as well has been involved. So yeah, it's just been through social media. It's just been great seeing, especially that amidst such a chaotic year, it seems, if anything, that it's been a real kind of spur for people to be as creative as possible and share their work.
Now, that prior project, was that in prose?
Sorry?
Was that prior project, was that in prose? Was it prose fiction as opposed to comics?
Sure. So it was, it was a mix, actually. So some of it was kind of comic panels, and then some of it, as you say, was prose. So it was, it kind of crossed through those borders. I wanted to do something where it wasn't quite as regimented of saying, oh, it's like, this is a novella, or this is a comic or a graphic novel. So it's a real mix, hopefully in the sense that it's just something for everyone that they can kind of dive in. The stories are short. Almost in that. I loved Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark when I was younger. So it just kind of is that kind of great excuse just to do 20 short stories and just capture the imagination of people. But yeah, it was great. Abigail Larson donated a piece. Pam Smythe, So yeah, really, really honored by people coming together for it.
No, that's cool. Now, so since you've written prose, because not every, I encounter some people write prose and comics, and I've encountered people just write comics, right? So because I've written both, so like what do you find are the differences between writing prose and comics, like, and what are the pluses and minuses?
I guess in the sense of with comics, you've got to really think about things which I often find are overlooked in horror comics, which I think it's really important to count your beats, to work out where the scares should be coming in. I've read so many horror comics where it's just kind of, especially in the indie scene, that where you go through them, especially on anthologies, and as you go through that, they miss things out, like the page turns. And I always think it's really important. You've got a medium there that you should be turning a page, and there should be a reveal. You should be building these things, almost like the Jaws kind of point of view, where you see nothing and then you build up to that scare. I think if you just show everything too early, it's kind of lost. So I feel, that's something which, in terms of doing comics, that's a key difference. And in terms of just paneling out your story, so for instance, one of the stories in question, The Wild Huntsman, that was like ancient German, which then had to be translated, and it rhymed in German, so then it had to be like changed back to a rhyming prose back into English. So that was a case of kind of mapping out how that would be split between the pages and still counting your scares. Against that, if you're just writing a novella, I guess it's a bit more relaxed in that sense, where you're not perhaps worrying so much about the things within the medium such as comics, but at the same time, there's a lot more text going in. So comics is always a case of you pulling stuff out and letting the visuals tell as much as possible. So it's that fine balance, I guess, between the two.
Gotcha. Now, the prior project, how did you finance it? Because obviously you're doing Kickstarter for this one. That other one, like what media? How did you get that out in the world?
So that's out on Gumroad.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to at some point look to do like perhaps a print-on-demand version, and that was certainly the plan pre Early Horns coming together. But it was purely self-funded. So and all the illustrators, they did it all for free, which is really, really fantastic, and I'm hugely grateful to them. But it's a digital format at the moment. Hopefully, one day in printed format would be especially cool.
No, yeah, that would be awesome. Now, so you were mentioning earlier that you've seen you saw some other anthologies by some other people that were inspiring to you. Now, what were the other? I don't know. Well, obviously you mentioned that one. We could talk a little bit more about that one. But what were the other ones? Like, did you see any other campaigns that really inspired you to do your campaign? Like, you were like, yeah, that's something. So what effect did you like that?
I can't think of anything which perhaps was like a direct horror anthology that inspired this. I've long been a fan of Kickstarters like there's Gawain and the Green Knight, which was a fantastic Kickstarter by an illustrator whose name has completely gone out of my head, which will come back to me. I remember seeing that campaign. I'm going to Google this for chat, which came a couple of years ago, and that was amazing. Seeing that come together. I guess not necessarily in terms of campaigns, but certainly having seen anthologies before from the likes of John Reppion and Leah Moore, who did the M.R. James adaptation, which came out in Self-Made Hero a few years ago. And they've done 2 volumes now of his ghost stories. So, I mean, that's certainly been an interesting precursor, seeing how they took those stories and adapted it with a range of different illustrators. And then against that, like probably one of my favorite horror anthologies would be Emily Carroll's Through the Woods, which, I mean, it's just a stunning use of medium and playing around with, just how you tell these particularly creepy stories, just within the medium of comics. But I know I mentioned it before, big fan of Becky Cloonan, By Chance, By Providence. Her anthology was, in terms of folk horror, I think is really, really amazing.
Nice. Okay, cool. Now, your process as a writer, now you're obviously working with different artists. So, I mean, what was your process? Like, did you write full-on scripts, or did you go like, there's the Marvel and DC style. So the DC style is a little bit more just scripts. Marvel style is you give an outline, maybe some dialogue, and then you let the artist figure out the rest, and you come in and you just fill in. Like how are you working?
For the most part, I try and give the artist as much freedom as possible. But I think I come from a background of like I'm really inspired by scary visuals, so I'll usually collate. I mean, I'm a graphic designer by trade, so it kind of goes with it, I guess. Where I'll usually have a resource folder where I've gone through, and so for instance, the house in Athens, being set in ancient Greece, it was a case of getting those backgrounds that really set the tone and the feel of it, something different as well, not necessarily just kind of like your kind of aesthetic tropes. So quite often I'll send over a pack to an illustrator just with background image reference. It might be forests in the case of the Wild Huntsman, Japanese structures in the Tale of Dish Mansion, which is the one which Bree Newman illustrated, and ghostly figures, maybe stuff from film, stuff from books that I've seen. I've got a huge Pinterest which is just collated full of nightmarish images, which if I'm feeling kind of uninspired, I'll often just jump into to get some inspiration. So yeah, generally they get a pack and they get some reference points. And quite often they might say, that's cool, but I've got this idea of doing this instead, which would be up for maybe a compromise. And, it's kind of meeting in the middle. It's that thing where you'll never be able to get exactly what's in your head out there. But that's kind of the joy of it, because, it's all about somewhere along the line, meeting somewhere in the middle and creating something else entirely. So yeah, it's I guess it's a real mix.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I run across a lot of guys that is like, no, full script.
I
mean, it's just not always possible. Sometimes you want to collaborate a little bit more with your artist. Now, so obviously you've been through this process, a few times, because you have 4 artists, so you got 4 stories, so you got this process down. Like, now, what was the part of the process that you most enjoyed during that?
Undoubtedly, it's getting pages back and seeing what you've outlined and suggested, and you discussed, different styles, and actually seeing it visualized is always an absolute joy. And there's nothing better where you sit for a week and you're just getting pages in your inbox and you're seeing this thing which has been kind of thumbnailed really crudely by me, just like stick figures in some cases, and you're seeing it actually illustrated and colored is always a joy. But yeah, I guess just the first time perhaps you're working with an illustrator perhaps you don't know, and you've seen their work and you see their interpretation of the story that you've given them. That's always so rewarding, just to be able to say, this is it, you've ticked the box. So yeah, that's been a real pleasure in this instance.
No, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's one of the things I most enjoy too. Now, what is now on the flip side of that coin? Which is the part of the process that you most dread?
It ranges from different projects. So, generally for something like a general comic project, I would say it's the case of, okay, so for instance, I had a ghost story which I broke down for Nyctophobias into a comic, and it's going through, and it's, as I said before, it's that thing of removing as much as possible so that the visuals tell the story is best. And that's always just a nightmare, where you just kind of like, I want to convey this, but your hope is that the illustration does that. And there's nothing worse when you get a comic page and it's just text. That's like a nightmare. So that would be a nightmare. But yeah, to the same extent, I guess that the tidying up process when stuff goes to print, I'm currently in the midst of that at the moment, where you're just going through and you're looking at everything over and over. Just you're adamant that you don't want any mistakes to go through. Right. It's such a pain. You have to do it several times, because if you do it late at night, it's not going to be the same as first thing in the morning. So those two, I guess, would be the worst things for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, completely understandable on both ends. So, all right. So, we talked about the comic, but you told me you have something else going on. You say you have a video game coming out on Thursday. So, that sounds real interesting. Tell me a little bit about that.
Cool. So I've been working with a really, really talented video game developer, Scotty Supple, and he did one of the illustrations, in fact, for Nyctophobias. I wrote a ghost story about this haunted, like a retro MS Paint program, and Scotty did a really cool 8-bit style piece of art for it. It's absolutely beautiful. And he's done some fantastic horror games before. He's done the Third Shift. He works with a guy called Julian Crowhurst, and they've got a games company called I want to say this properly, Tibawa Games. I really admired their work for ages. Got chatting with Scotty earlier on this year, and said, I'd love to do like a video game with you. I think that'd be really cool. So yeah, it's based on this retro. We would call it like an edutainment game, like the kind of game you perhaps get in the schools, like back in the 80s. I've got fond memories of, you're in your classroom and there'd be like one computer and all the kids would be just like, oh my God, when's my chance of playing on this incredible thing, which had the most basic graphics. And it's all based around pylon education, so like transmission masts. So in the UK, we had these terrifying public information films back in like the 70s and 80s. It was like, don't play near water, like lakes and stuff, because you'll drown. Or don't fly a kite near a pylon mast because you'll get electrocuted. So they've been cited by like Edgar Wright as terrifying him when he was a kid. So it was a great opportunity. It's kind of I don't want to say too much but it's, in terms of what to expect, but it's if you're into folk horror and retro gaming, it's out this Thursday, which we're calling Pylons Day, just in time for Halloween.
Nice. So now how do you go about writing a video game? I've written comics, I've written prose, I've written these other things, but like how do you go about writing a video game? How different is that from all these other things that you've done?
Really different. It was a steep learning curve, to be honest. Scotty's been fantastic to work with, but in terms of mapping it out, sure, like I wrote down like one long narrative of this is how I see it, this is how you start it. I want the character to end up like this at the end of it, and it's got to have some scares, and you don't want to, as I said before with comics, you don't want to kind of be just blowing all the scares straight away. You want to build it, and you want to unsettle the player. So it was the case really of kind of bouncing back and forth with him. I think pretty much Scotty and Julian have worked just with themselves in terms of previous projects. So it was probably a learning curve between both of us, but they've been absolutely fantastic. Quite often it's a case of going, okay, we split, just having this one long narrative, me splitting up, and then the feasibility of how things can work. Maybe there might be a case where I had a few ideas in mind. Scotty was like, that's not going to be a cool way for the player to experience the game. You want to try doing this, which is really great, just bouncing it back and forth. But yeah, it's a lot more. I guess it would be a lot more segmented against doing like comic writing, which is quite segmented in itself. But yeah, it's been a cool experience. But yeah, it's certainly different.
No, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. So so that's coming out what, Thursday? Yeah,
this Thursday, the 22nd of October.
All right, cool. So everybody check it out. It's going to be in the show notes, and we'll have a link so you can pick up a copy early. Cool. Or you can do it like, what is it, pre-order?
Yeah. I can give you a link. So yeah, if anyone watching wants to pre-order it, I think it's going to be up for like $3, and you can just pre-order it and get it on Thursday.
Now is that see, here's the funny thing. I gave up on video games a long time ago. So I get obsessive compulsive. So like I play a video game and I stay on it. So I had to give it. Yeah, it's bad. So I need to write.
Same here. It's to be honest, it's the first time I've really delved back into video games for a long time. I used to, probably the same as you, I used to be addicted to stuff like Grand Theft Auto, where you just lose days.
Yeah.
But I've started recently. Someone got me into VR gaming recently, and I mean the horror side of that has kind of opened my eyes back up again. But yeah. Hopefully you'll get a chance to try it out. Yeah.
But what platforms is it for?
So it's itch.io. So it's PC only.
Okay.
But yeah, it's worth checking out. I'm pretty sure you can get like boot systems as well that you can run it on a Mac.
Right. Okay. Cool. Now, all right. Cool. So the your experience on Kickstarter. Now, how's that been? Because I've seen I've looked over your Kickstarter. You're doing very, very well for yourself. Like
Thank you.
how? Yeah. So I mean, how have you been able to generate that much interest in your project? Like, what have you done? A lot of interviews? Have you just got a huge mailing list? I mean, what have you been going? How have you been, putting yourself out there?
To be honest, I try to get as long a run up to it as possible. So I'm really lucky to have some great previous customers to previous books that I've put out. So I let the mailing list wise, I'll be really honest, I don't have a huge mailing list. It's maybe like a few hundred at most. That went out several weeks ahead of its release. Kickstarter, in truth, they've been great. It's certainly, again, it's been an education working with them. Just in terms of the pre-order page went up really late, so that would have been great if I could have had that a little bit earlier so people could have had notifications. But they signed off really late on it. And then it's just been really a case of, I guess, just connecting with as many people as possible. I've got a lot of friends and contacts who are into ghost stories and comics too, so it kind of crosses over.
Right.
No, in terms of interviews, it's not been I think this is probably the second, maybe like the second filmed interview. I've done like maybe 3 other written interviews. I've not had the chance, to be honest. October's been insane, just kind of proofing, and I mean we're at a stage now where it just hit the second stretch goal the other day. So it's now an augmented reality read. So you'll be able to download a free app and scan pages and panels will come to life, and that's used up all my spare time. So
right.
I've not had the time for it.
So are you doing the augmented reality thing? Like, I mean, are you like the one setting it up and doing all that stuff?
So I do animation. So I'm doing all the animation for it. And then I've got a team of coders that I worked with previously. I put out a book last year as well, which was called Photographs. And I've got this thing on Twitter, which I do, which are like they're animated GIFs, and each one has got a couple of sentences, like a quick ghost story. And I wanted to kind of put that into printed form. So yeah, it was a good excuse. So with the book Photographs, it's just kind of small. I was looking for a copy if I had one next to me. And you scan it, and then these images come to life. And I just thought, the next step for that would be to put it into a graphic novel. So yeah, it's just a good excuse to do that. So I'm animating, and then it's a team of coders that are actually embedding and making the app.
Oh, that's really cool. It's funny. I just interviewed a couple of guys last night. Sam Noir and Andrew Dorland, and I mean they're doing an augmented reality comic, and I was just like, so it's funny just to hear someone else doing it like so soon.
That's so cool. It's Ballyskillen, right?
Yes, Ballyskillen. Yes, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, it looks incredible. I was just like, what voodoo is this?
It's like it's close to Harry Potter, isn't it? I guess you can get with like moving wallpapers and
exactly. That's really cool. So I mean, now with your, let me see if I can, with Kickstarter, and like obviously you're putting yourself out there. This is the first one you've done, right?
Sure.
So now what are you looking at for the future? Are you looking to do like a second volume to this? Do you have other projects lined up?
Yeah, I mean, doing the research for this, the research has been going back like over 2 years. So there's been a lot of research that's gone into it, and there was loads of stories that I'd love to have done, which just didn't get a chance. So given the opportunity, I mean, I would love to do like a volume 2 at least, which would be really great. But the next big thing, I mean, I've got a project that I've been working on for many years now with a partner of mine called Ghoster, which is kind of like, I suppose best described as The Conjuring meets Assassin's Creed, where it's a group of families that protect the UK from malevolence who are like really evil ghosts. And we put out a graphic novel. Again, I guess that would have been, 2018. which was like a first chapter. And we've not really had a chance to go back to that, but we've got an amazing story for the rest of the world, which we've had a chance to get together and get down for this year. So we've got a teaser. I've not mentioned this anywhere else, but one of the artists from Early Haunts, David Ramiro, has been working with us, and we've got a teaser which we're going to put out for Christmas. It's just going to be like a short online comic, which just kind of gives a nod to the future. And ideally, that 2021, depending what kind of happens in terms of the world, but we'd love to get a Kickstarter down for that.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Now back into a little bit of process. Now, when you're sitting down and you're writing your scripts, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? Are you one of these guys, you got like a little string and you got Post-it notes all over the place and you're figuring out the crime, or are you just attacking the keyboard, and saying, screw it, I'll figure it out at the end in the editing process?
Yeah, I always feel like the editing process just cleans up a lot of just crap. So,
right.
Most certainly it's a case of I was trying to get down as much out of my head as possible, just in terms of one long narrative, which might not make the most amount of sense, and then kind of chop into it and take out the guff and just kind of streamline it and get it into some shape, which I think is probably the best way I've found of working at it. I have attempted to, and I've previously done plotting, and I'm being really strict with myself with Early Haunts, and that's kind of stuck to certain schedules. But in terms of actual narrative and story, I think it's just a case really of just getting everything down and then taking as much out as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's how I work.
Excellent.
Yeah. I sit down. I just, I read Stephen King's novel. I mean, his book on writing.
Oh, right.
And the one thing I found that really helped me was he was like, look, the first draft is yours, right? Put whatever you want in there. Put in everything. You understand? But understand, on that second draft, you may be cutting a lot of that out. Or sure. You will be cutting a lot out. So that's the way I work it. I'm like, because some of these people, when they do the hard line drafting, I'm like, wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, you just think you've got so many, I don't know, for me, I think, it's going to have so many more incarnations, and I like to put stuff down for like a week at least and come back to it just because you'll have a fresh perspective, and just think to do that much work at the early stage just feels like you're creating a lot more work for yourself, personally anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's different for everybody. Some people find the other method easier, because I've done the other method. The only problem is that I feel that it was locking me in a little bit too much.
Sure.
Right? I couldn't make that, that shift if I wanted to in the middle of a story, because I was like, I already got a map laid out. I said, all right, well, I kind of follow this, all right, cool. So, I mean, we've been at this for a little bit. We're coming close to the end, but we're not there just yet. I got a few other questions for you. So, but before we do that, please, Thom, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Sure. So I'm on social media. I'm just Mano Ghosts. So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just Man-O Ghosts. And then, like Early Haunts, it's kind of linked into all the different accounts. Any backers now will get the full augmented reality version of the book. So it's probably a great time to do it. It's got 19 days left on the campaign. The plan is to get them all printed for Christmas. So, it's kind of that thing where it's the perfect year really for, some distractions. And if you're looking for a ghost story for Christmas, it's probably a worthy investment.
Cool. All right. Now, next one is, did I not ask you any questions you wanted me to ask you, or is there anything you want to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I can't think of any. I think, with it being season of spooks and ghosts, I've probably name dropped all my favorite horror graphic novels. How about you? Are there any particular reads that you're reading at the moment which you'd rate in terms of horror?
Well, it's funny because I have a few things that I write this time of year. For me, is I don't know if you ever heard of the Hammer, Kelly Jones.
Right, sure.
Yeah, very very bizarre, comic. I like that sort of thing. But for me, is I tend to watch more movies. This time of year for horror, I tend to watch In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, fantastic!
right, something like The Thing, those sorts of things. But yeah, there's definitely a few things that I definitely run through. I mean, do you have any movies that you particularly like to enjoy, or any books that you like to read around this time of year?
That's usually watching. Like we've got a bit of a tradition of watching Sleepy Hollow this time of year.
Hmm.
I mean, it just always just seems like the perfect Halloween film. And I've done so much research on Washington Irving over like the last few months, like over the last year, but certainly over the last few months, and it's been really interesting reading about all the different influences and supposed reports of like a headless horseman ghost that's been seen in Sleepy Hollow. So yeah, I guess that, and then I'm returning to stuff like Through the Woods, Emily Carroll. I usually watching what did we watch? Like Dark Water, like those classic Japanese horrors. Like
Right.
love all that kind of stuff. So it's been it's been a real good excuse just to delve back into the horror.
Yeah. Have you ever watched House?
House, I have, yeah, not for many years. That's a classic.
Mm-hmm. Very bizarre movie. Yeah, but a lot of fun though. Yeah. Have you ever Did you ever get into what is it? Audition? Was it I forgot the name of the director. Um, Ichi.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, he did Ichi the Killer. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but yeah. He did a movie called Ichi the Killer. He did Audition. Yeah, he did a lot of these insane, over the top Japanese horror movies. Fantastic stuff.
I love it. I've never seen Ichi the Killer, but I love. Started watching Audition me and some friends years ago, and just the fact that you start watching one film and you're like, okay, sure, I get what's going on, and then halfway through, like the rug's pulled out from under you, and you're like, what is going on? It's just pure horror. Yeah, it's fantastic. Genius.
That's why I actually enjoy watching movies from other cultures and other societies, because they don't tend to follow the same 3-act structure that we use. It's different. Like it's weird. Like the love triangle from Japan is different than the love triangle from China.
Sure.
Yeah, like in China is usually 2 guys going after a girl, whereas in Japan is 2 girls going after a guy.
Yeah, for sure. That's really.
And I've always found that just interesting to see the way they work it, the dichotomy of way the differences, So
yeah, that's really cool. One thing we have been watched Bly Manor, like the Netflix TV show that's been on, which has been really great, and that kind of that reminded me. There's another stretch goal on the campaign, which is if it hits 20K. Me and one of the illustrators are going to do an early haunts, which is based all about the inspiration behind Turn of the Screw, aka like Bly Manor. So that's like one of the scariest ghost stories I've ever read, and it's not very well known. So yeah, really hope if we can hit that before the end of the campaign, that would be cool.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. Now, let's move on to these goofy questions I like to ask. Cool. So now the first one is, if you had a choice of an artist, living or dead, who could do, well, we'll change it up. Well, let's say if you had someone you could work with us to illustrate a story for you. Living or dead, any comic book artist, who would you pick?
Well, that's really tough. I suppose my go-to would probably be Becky Cloonan, because I think her work is astounding, and I've long been a huge fan of her output. So yeah, I think her line work's incredible. So having worked with some fantastic artists, I would say, that would be a dream.
All right, cool. Now, if you had the choice, and if you got the golden ticket and they called you up to the big companies and they said, Thom, you could pick any comic, any series, any title, any whatever, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just Marvel or DC. It could be any of these companies. What book would you want, or what character would you want to write?
Oh wow! Oh god. That's really tough. There's so many. I would love, I know it's kind of recently finished, but like something like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen would be really cool to do something different on that. I mean, there's so much fan art there where people have done like a 90s version of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and 80s version. I just think that would be really cool to have, sort of free reign on who to bring in for a new team. I guess something like, so I love Titan and their output for, titles like Penny Dreadful, which I always felt it never really got like the full perhaps wrap up it should have got on TV.
Right.
You know, like a full on gothic adaptation of another story for that IP would be really cool. Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. All right, now I have a few comparatives for you, right? So I'll softball you, and then we'll work into some of these more interesting ones. Captain America or Batman?
Batman every time.
Okay. Godzilla or Gamera?
Oh, Godzilla.
Okay. Kirk or Picard?
Oh, I'm not really tricky, so I'd say maybe Kirk, perhaps.
Okay. Oh, that's not fair. Oh, Harry Potter or Narnia?
Oh, Narnia. Sure.
Okay. Some of these will come with Y, so we'll hit one of those soon. I don't know how familiar you are with these two artists, but Tim Vigil or Richard Corbin?
Oh no, I'm not that familiar, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. Well, Tim Vigil, I'll explain a little bit. Tim Vigil, because they're both horror artists,
right?
Or they've done horror, because Tim Vigil did a book called Faust in the '90s.
Oh, right, sure. I knew the name was familiar. Yeah.
And, it's a little, it's. I shouldn't say a little raunchy. It's a lot raunchy. There's a lot of sex, a lot of rated X, but there's a lot of horror though. Very interesting stuff. And Tim Vigil is an incredible illustrator. Now, Richard Corbin, over the last few years, he's done Hellboy. He's famously known for Den. He worked in Creepy and Eerie magazine. He's done, just tons and tons of stuff. So, yeah, and then he's done adaptations of some of H.P. Lovecraft stories. There's a book out there where he did adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
I gut reaction then would be Corbin by the sound of it. I'd probably see it.
But yeah, that's why. I got some weird ones for you. I don't know how, because you're into horror, but I don't know if you're into American horror. So, Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers?
Oh, that's a good one. They're both so iconic. I'd say Myers probably, but that's really tight. Yeah.
Okay. Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah, maybe like a couple of years ago I'd have said Walking Dead, but I think Dawn of the Dead, it just feels, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I mean, I could not get on board with the latest series of The Walking Dead.
Gotcha. Yeah, Dawn of the Dead turned me off completely to zombies.
Did it really?
Yeah, because it scared the hell out of me. So I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna watch this anymore. It's just too gross.
Did you like the Snyder version, like the remake?
It's funny. I don't even think I saw it.
Okay. Well, you've got running zombies.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, it was funny. You know what it is? That's the problem with it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
It was funny because when the big zombie gets up and comes running off the gurney, and it's just like, oh, yeah. It was At that point, it turned to comedy for me. Pinhead or Freddy Krueger?
Oh, yeah. I've got memories of watching like a Hellraiser film when at like a party when we were all way too young. It was on like a VHS. We watched like of it and turn it off. So I think Pinhead. But that's much like Freddy. Yeah.
Got you. Let's see. Stan Lee or Jack Kirby?
Oh, that's really hard. I'd probably say Stan Lee, just like the world building. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing is a massive understatement. Is incredible. But yeah, that's very, very tight between them. I love Jack Kirby's work.
Okay, fair enough. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle or Agatha Christie?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh wow. Probably say Agatha Christie because I love Conan Doyle and I love his work. But Agatha, so me and my girlfriend have watched a lot of Agatha Christie over the last few years. There's usually one on the BBC for Christmas.
Right.
It's that thing of you've read it countless times, but it's almost like M.R. James. It's like you forget, like you don't necessarily forget the story, but you forget the beats, and so like your brain can never remember. Like certainly in Agatha Christie, who you were sort of going, who is it? I can't remember who did do it.
Mm-hmm.
She was so ahead of her time. So yeah, I'd say Agatha Christie.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny because for some reason, I was like 12 or 13. I got into Agatha Christie kick, and I read
Wow.
a bunch of her books in a very short period of time. And I read also, Arthur Conan Doyle's work, and I think I found her prose writing better.
Yeah.
I thought she was a better prose writer.
That's
Although
good.
he was probably a better character writer. But I liked her prose better. So that's why I always stuck with her myself personally. All right, let's see.
Awesome.
Neil Gaiman or Grant Morrison?
Oh, I think probably Gaiman. I do love Morrison as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this stuff is just so phenomenal. From Neverwhere to God, like God, my brain has gone blank. Yeah, like Good Omens. How could I have forgotten Good Omens? Yeah,
Right.
They're amazing.
No. This stuff is great. Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
I'd say Lord of the Rings, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe one Star Wars, but yeah, definitely Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha.
I should say Orlando Bloom literally grew up like a street away over that way, so
that's funny.
Relevant, yeah.
That's cool. Sandman or Swamp Thing? And I'm talking about Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay, cool. That is a fantastic Swamp Man. Yeah, Sandman, I would say. It was great revisiting it this year with the Audible adaptation. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that, but I've read it a number of times, but I haven't done that yet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was okay. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to the TV show.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's taken a long time, but yeah, hopefully it'll be worth the wait.
Yeah, you're right. That'd be cool. Really cool.
Now we've done a few of these. We'll do a couple more and we'll wrap it up. All right. So let's see. What do we got? Okay. H.P. Lovecraft or Poe?
Oh, I'd probably say, yeah, Poe. I think. I mean, that's probably the tightest out of any of them. I love Lovecraft's work. Wouldn't have liked him as a person, but yeah, I mean, Cthulhu is iconic. But like Poe's just there's so much richness in each of his stories.
Right. Bram Stoker or Mary Shelley?
Oh, Mary Shelley. But that again, really tight. I love both of them.
All right, cool. I'll ask you one more, and we'll wrap it up.
It's cool.
Oh, here's an easy one: werewolf or vampire?
Oh, vampire.
Now, why? Why would you choose vampire over those poor lycanthropes?
Just probably for the fact that you're dead is probably optimal to, I don't know, every single werewolf film. It doesn't look like a comfortable thing, and you rip all your clothes, and it would just be a pain in the ass, wouldn't it? So
true. Right. So, all right, cool. Thom, this was awesome. Now, one more time, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Sure. So find me on manoghost.com or on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You've got all my links are on there for all my different titles. And Early Haunts, which it's my pinned tweet. Still 19 days to back it. Yeah, by all means, come and check out my work.
All right, cool. So go check out Early Haunts. It looks awesome. It's in the show notes. You'll also be able to find Pylons.
Yep.
Sure. It sounds like a great video game. So yes, so go check that out. You can order it early, and yeah, man, it's all going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much. Hit like, hit subscribe, share out the show. Go check out these fantastic books. I think they sound. I mean, Early Haunts sounds great, and I would like to see the prose book. If you could do a Kickstarter on that, I think that would be awesome.
For sure. Yeah. I should say that's on nyctophobias.com. People can still get hold of that if they want to read it.
All right, there you go. So there you go. Thank you so much, Thom, for coming on. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and I'll be talking to you all soon. Take care.
Thanks, JD.